The light's getting a little bit low today, so I decided that I needed a camera that can handle low light better. So I'm out on the Sony ZV-1F, which has an f2 and a big 1-inch sensor, and I thought it would work pretty well, and we never come outside and do a handheld on this, so I thought it'd be different. A lot of times when I'm talking to people here in Nicaragua, I find that the idea that everyone is out trying to sell something, especially the idea that Nicaragua is wildly successful, and that people, especially expats who come here and invest, are doing really well and like making all this money is this really common thing. And I find it on a lot of channels. Now there's some channels out there that are a lot more realistic and doing a really good job. I'm not saying it's everyone, but there is definitely some historically, sorry for the sound of me trying to tighten up the nut there, is that there historically has been these, especially real estate channels, who have in the past said, oh no, you know, everything is selling so fast, everything is worth so much money, everything keeps appreciating. And the economy here in Nicaragua is super strong. It's the strongest in the region. It's done really well. We had huge growth last year. We had good growth the year before that. Like just year over year, it's been doing really well. And so if you're looking at that, it's really easy to believe that some things are doing extremely well. And that if the economy is growing like that, well, expats must be able to just move in and make money, which is not the case, right? That doesn't actually logically connect, but it does make it seem like maybe it does. And a lot of people just think that expats just magically make money. Somehow their businesses at home, where they're from, where they really know things, don't make money magically. Everybody knows that, but there's a feeling somehow we all get it. Like this is universal. I totally get it too. You go to a new place and you think, well, this place, I'm totally going to be able to just make money in a way that I couldn't somewhere else. And it makes no sense, right? If you can open an Airbnb in one country, you could have done it where you come from. And the place that you came from, you probably know a lot better than the place that you're in now. So why would your Airbnb be more likely to be successful in this new place where everyone's having the same feeling than in the place you came from where very few people had that feeling? It just doesn't make sense, but we all feel that way. So it's important to understand that we do all feel that way, and that's a universal thing, and don't feel badly that you feel that way, but logically connect in your brain that everyone else is having the same feeling, everyone else is doing the same thing, everybody's making the same mistakes, and so you're compounding risk. Not only do you have the normal risk, you also have you're in a pool of people who are all doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, and you're putting each other at additional risk because you're competing with each other quite a bit more. So to internalize those things. When talking to so many people, of course, if you're on a real estate channel or something like that, you have expectations that people are going to be inflating prices. People are going to be trying to make you feel that there's successful pressure. But what I find from a lot of expats is that they do these things even though they're not real estate agents or in some way financially gaining from the situation, or maybe they are, and I don't know how, but generally I'm pretty sure they're not. I think that there is and we all have this, right? We all are trying to sell something. I'm certainly trying to sell you on the idea of living abroad. I certainly want to encourage you to become an expat. I certainly want you to think that Nicaragua is a really good place to investigate, and you should consider it strongly. I'm not saying that it is the right place for you. I'm going to move so I get a little bit less echo. But it is a place that I think you should investigate for real. And I'm not making any money from that, except for, the buying me coffee on the channel or whatever, but it is something that I'm passionate about, and it is something that I'm selling, right? We all do this. All humans do this, so be aware. Everyone's always trying to sell something. Everybody's got an angle. It's just how life is, right? We have things we're interested in. I like to sell you on cameras. Like, I love cameras, so I'll talk about them. Do I make money selling you a camera? I sure don't, but I love cameras, and it'd be more fun if more people took more pictures of things, right? And a lot of times we just have our hobbies, right? So I want to get you into model railroading because it makes me happy, right? So that's what I mean by sales. Right? Not necessarily someone's financially incentivized to screw you over or anything of the sort. Not like that. Just things that we're passionate about, and we want to promote them. It makes sense, right? So be aware that people do that. But here in Nicaragua, something that I've seen a lot of, and something you have to hedge against or prepare for, is that so often people want to make it for whatever reason. I have no idea what the driving factor is here. Maybe they have friends that are involved. Maybe they are doing some of these things. Maybe they think that the rising tide will bring them up as well because they've bought a house or something. I don't know. But what I found is people will really jump a lot onto certain concepts. Let me give you an example. There's a house for sale or a property for sale. Maybe it's a lot, right? And you'll be like, okay, so this place has been for sale for as long as I can remember, right? So we'll just take one that I know of, an empty lot that we had on the show, right? It's been for sale, realistically. Well, we'll talk, there's another lot that I know of. It's been for sale, right, for 10 years. It was for sale so long before I got here. When I got here, 4.5 years ago, people were talking about how it had been for sale forever, and everybody forgotten about it being for sale. It had been for sale for so long. Most of the properties that were for sale when I first got here are still for sale. A few are for sale again, and a few are no longer for sale, for sure. But there's a trend towards more being still for sale than any other category. And famously to me, there is, I have a bug that just went down my throat. There is a house in Ponaloya that I looked at before we moved down. So 5.5 years ago, I watched videos about this house. I looked at the pricing on this house. I did a bunch of investigation on this house. And then when we finally moved down and it was nearby, I walked out and looked at it in early 2021, so April, maybe May of 2021. It was the very first time I ever went to Ponaloya. I made since coming back, I made a point of going and checking out this house, and it was still for sale. The video had made it sound like it was going fast, it was in high demand, all these things, and when I got there, it was clear that the person who was selling it was not actually the person selling it. It was just a person trying to make a quick buck on it. There was no active sale. There's no active work to prepare it for sale. There was nothing. The place was simply abandoned, and someone had slapped a for sale sign on it. Whether that was a real for sale sign or not, we'll never know. What we will probably never know. What we do know is that it was not actively being sold. No one was doing anything, but it was, I'm sure, actively available if you had wanted to pay for it. We also know that the prices they were saying online were about 5 times or so what it really was. I think they were saying it was $90,000. I think we determined it was worth about 15, right? And that place was abandoned. It wasn't completed. It was in terrible disrepair, and it was falling apart because no one was taking care of it. Sorry for the harsh light. It is evening. I don't normally record this late, but I've had a busy day. And this just came up, and I really wanted to get this out. I think this is an important topic. And so going and looking at this house, it was very clear. Obviously, the real estate agent, that's their job, is to get interest and to get you to buy remotely without actually investigating and all that. Totally makes sense. So in that case, they're financially incentivized. But it really hit me how strongly people were trying to portray the market is very different than it was. That this is, like, these things are in high demand. These things are turning over. You know, you're going to miss this opportunity. And I know I went past it a few days ago, and it's still, every time I drive past, I just glance over, still has the for sale sign up, still available today. I think they may have done a little bit of work to actively try to promote it a little bit more, but the basic property is still available. Nothing has really changed, and it's still the same place, right? Maybe they slapped a coat of paint on it, but nothing has significantly changed. So it's really interesting. And then so much of the beach is like this. So there's these properties that have been around forever, but people will tell you, right, in this desire to make them sound attractive for whatever reason, that, oh no, it's such a good property, no one can afford it. Okay, it's a falling down shack, right? And, oh, they've gotten lots of offers on this house. Good offers, really. And they decided not to sell. Right, so it's not really for sale. Oh no, it's really for sale. There's, you know, and there's always a reason why it fell through, which could happen, of course. But when someone's really trying to buy a place for real, and someone's really trying to sell a place for real, there's got to be a reason why it's not able to actually sell. Now, in many cases, people don't actually own the properties, or they don't have their deeds in order. And in many cases, it's not that someone doesn't want to buy the place. It's truly that the person selling it is just kind of lackadaisical about it, right? They never managed to get a deed. No one's actually going to seize the house, so they didn't really worry about it. Now, yeah, they'd like to sell it, but they're not, like, really interested in selling it. Not like I'm putting a big effort on selling it. Like, okay, there's lots of reasonable reasons that could still mean that it's a decent property that would stop it from actively turning over hands. However, in general, right, these things are indicators. If a house can't sell for years, it is a super, super exception to stop and say, oh, but it's actually really valuable and they're getting serious offers. No, maybe they're getting lowball offers. Maybe they're getting offers that doesn't cover their mortgage. Maybe they don't really want to sell and the whole thing is just for show or whatever. They want to feel like they want to sell. There's a million different reasons. But when you really want to sell a property and someone actually wants to buy it, you don't normally have real problems. So when you're looking at properties, right, houses, businesses, anything, and people are like, no, it's really in high demand, but it's been for sale for a really long time, either they're demanding way too much money or the property is just valueless and no matter what you pay, it's not worth it, and people know that. These are the realities of how it works. And everyone's going to try to sell you that, and probably because we all own property and we're all afraid of the bottom falling out of the market again and losing all this value. Sorry for my wandering around. I just can't find really great light for the show. And so everyone has this, like, let's prop it up by pretending things are much better than they are, that all the other properties are in demand and there's just some completely benign reason why no one can sell anything. And I did a video a couple years ago, why you can't find anything in Las Piñatas and Ponaloya. And of course, this other channel popped in and did an entire rebuttal. And of course, it's the same guy who pretended to be selling this property and had put up all this hype and couldn't sell it forever. I mean, as far as I know, it's been 6 or 7 years since that video went up and the house is still for sale, right? And it's been available all this time and no one wants it. It's never turned over. It's never been worked on, nothing, right? And he had a rebuttal, of all people, to try to claim that things were really good on the beach and there's all this money. And then people will also claim other things like, well, this business went out of business, but it was doing really successful. So it can happen, right? Someone dies, someone retires, someone just is tired and they give up and they close a successful business. It can happen. But in the real world, right, 99% of the time, a successful business does not close. Unless they, something's about to change and they decided they saw the writing on the wall and they want to get out. Okay, there's exceptions. But by and large, if you have a successful business, you don't close it. And if you have a successful business, you don't sell it. Because you won't make as much money in the sell. Now, if you have like a Silicon Valley, thing and you can't make money and someone else might, yeah, you bail and get out. That's because you actually didn't have a successful business, but you had a decent idea. That's different. But if you have a real business, restaurant, hotel, whatever, you name it, a little business that you own and run and operate, if it's making good money, if it's actually profitable, you're not going to get rid of that because you're just throwing money away. You might decide to have someone else operate it for you because you want to step back. Okay, risky at times, but reasonable. But to shut it down and just be like, you know what, it makes good money, pays all of our bills, we could buy more things. Nah, you know what, who wants money? I'm not going to let someone else make money off of this and give me some. Nope, I'm going to shut it down. But that's what people try to claim, to try to make it sound like there's all this success. But closing businesses, things that have gone out of business, things that are up for sale and can't find a buyer, places that are for rent and still for sale because they're trying to hedge against the never-ending inability to sell. These things indicate a bad situation. It means that they can't sell for what they want. Or maybe they can't sell for anything, but we'll assume that they can't get enough to make it worthwhile to sell. So the properties languish and then they lower in value over time. And one of the things, I had a property that I talked about on the show that I know they were actively selling to me and to people I was showing the house to. I'm not a real estate agent, but people do ask me to go take them to look at things. So I see the interactions. I don't make any money on this, but I'm there for a lot of things, right? Hey, can you drive with me? Hey, can you ride with me? Hey, can you evaluate this house while I'm there? Yeah. So I'm often at these places. I know when places are for sale. For 4 years, I've been showing this place or seeing this place because I'm one of the people they tried to sell to. And in an attempt just the other day to make it sound like things were better in whatever region it was than reality. They're like, that house is newly on the market. It hasn't had time, to get interest yet. I'm like, look, that place has never not been on the market. It was on the market before I moved here 4.5 years ago. 4 years ago, they figured out who I was and tried to sell it to me. That was not a new thing. He was trying to unload it then, still hasn't unloaded it after all these years. Now, maybe there's a good reason he hasn't unloaded it. I think the property's garbage and he's insane what he wanted for it, right? He wanted, even 4.5 years ago, many times what it was worth before it became famously bad. Now it's got such a bad reputation, it's not even worth a fraction of that, right? And its location is okay. But it doesn't have the best location. It has weird shifting views. It's not bad. Like, it would be a great spot. You could do amazing things with it. But are you going to get someone to take a reasonable price for it? I don't know. It certainly wasn't reasonable back at the time. But that kind of stuff is important, that everyone seems to be out to try to promote everything as if everything costs more than it does, if everything has value when we know it doesn't, right? And there's a ton. I get a lot of pushback that you guys don't see on the show, that when I show what things are actually selling for or what things are not able to sell for, people rush in with excuses. You can't show them that. No, you're gonna lower our house values. Oh my gosh, you're not gonna help us as expats get richer. You're gonna make it harder for us to sell our houses at profit. Like, I get a lot of pushback from expats who are trying to convince everyone that the market is good and that the prices are higher than what we're actually seeing, and that the low prices we experience are some myth, as if we're not actually experiencing them every day. And if the numbers we see are still not gringo price to some degree. Of course they are. I know quite often we're talking about how cheap a place is and people are like, you can't possibly buy for that. I'm like, I'm pretty sure the locals are buying for half of the price that I just said. I can't guarantee it. I can't prove it, but I'm suspicious. And I see places sell often for much lower than we say they're going to sell for, right? And there's so much pushback, whether it's to claim that businesses are successful or houses are somehow these amazing deals that just somehow didn't come to fruition. And that can happen. There are places that bad luck happens. There's places that things fall through. There's people who just, for some reason, have an emergency and they can't get all their paperwork in order and they never manage to do a thing. But you know what? If you don't have your paperwork in order, you're not actually trying to sell a house. Or you're not actually trying to sell a business. You may want people to think that you are for whatever reason. Maybe you got a spouse who like pushes you to sell and you don't want to. Okay, that's all right. Maybe you want the neighbors to think that you're doing something that you're not. That's fine. But the reality is if you really wanted to sell a house, either you're going to lower the price until it sells, or you need to admit that the house isn't worth what you're trying to sell it for. And we understand in this market, there are very few buyers. Things move incredibly slowly. And it's very tough. And that's okay. But we can't try to pretend. And most importantly, for my audience, I need you to understand that there are these people who are constantly on this mission to prop up the market. And a lot of them, nearly every homeowner, nearly every business owner, is trying to prop up the market and get you to believe that it's worth more than it is so they can bail and get out. Another thing that I heard recently is that houses that are for sale are worth so much, yet people are high demand, they're trying to buy them, but somehow haven't. But they're also really successful as an Airbnb or as a hotel or as a hostel or some kind of thing that makes money, or just as a rental, right? Rental house. And you're like, okay, so let's make a quick definition of what wildly successful is, or reasonably successful. A reasonably successful house is one that earns so much money that you won't consider selling it, right? If you want to sell a house, you would only want to sell it if it wasn't making you a good amount of money, right? So if it's making good money, you wouldn't want to sell it. This is just back to that business thing, just basic logic, is you don't want to unload. Now there's that rare circumstance where you think you could use the same money to do something else even wildly more successful. Totally makes sense. That's a thing. And I've seen it happen in business, and it's a risk, but it makes sense. You think you have a great idea, you need cash, and you're willing to take a chance by giving up the bird in the hand for the bigger set of birds that are not in your hand but are nearby. Okay, that's valid. But in general, especially with property, with real estate, if you already own real estate and it's already making successful amounts of money, not a reasonable hedge until you can sell it, but actually being a successful rental, successful Airbnb, successful hotel or whatever, you do not close it and you do not sell it. And you certainly don't want to sell it because the act of selling lowers the value of the rental. People don't want to pay as much for an Airbnb or a house rental or a party house or a whatever if it's being advertised for sale and they have to have people come and look at it. Now, the reality is that people are not coming to look at the houses, so that's not actually a concern. But if people believed there was any chance of it being sold, they would have to, oh, no, sorry, I know you rented it for the weekend, but yeah, we're here to see the house. We're thinking about buying it, right? What are you going to do? So all kinds of weird things happen here. But if you're making good money, if you're, why would you sell a house for $150K if you're bringing in $2,000 a month in profits? You wouldn't. Makes no sense at all. If you want to buy another house, just take the profits from that one and go buy another house, right? Like, don't give up the golden goose just because you want a mallard, right? No, you keep the golden goose and you use the golden eggs to buy more stuff. So the story that I get is always things like this. Well, okay, they've had problems selling it. There's always another story, right? But it's Airbnb. It's making all kinds of money. Really? Because I talk to people about the Airbnbs all the time. They can't find anything. This place hasn't come up for them. Maybe it's always sold out and no one can ever see it. But that seems unlikely, right? It's just everyone has a story to try to make everything sound better than it is. And I don't know exactly why. The biggest thing I think is people have friends and they want to make them look good. People have property of their own or businesses of their own, and they're afraid that if as many people as my channel reaches, I guess, understand how poorly the businesses are doing, how little the houses are actually worth, how cheaply they could buy the house next door for, how little it would take to fix a place up. If that real information was out there more, which it's getting out there, that they're not going to be able to, they were hoping to maybe they overspent and they're hoping to get their money back out. Maybe they're hoping to make double on the house what they put into it. Maybe they're just afraid of the bottom falling out. There's a lot of maybes and I don't know. but it's a pattern I see a lot of, and I've been seeing it for years, since before I moved down. I've been seeing it ever since I got here. And there's some people who are completely honest, and they're like, I don't know. And some people are completely honest, like, here's the prices we're paying, and they're super low. And then there's people who are like, we're going to list everything at many times the price and get really belligerent about it. And it's one of the reasons why, if you're looking at a lot and it should be, let's say, $5,000 or $10,000, and someone says, I want $150,000 for this, just walk away. That's not negotiating. That's not a starting point. That's a blowing bluster, right? They don't want to sell it, or they only want to gringo price someone, and you don't want to be that person, right? Don't play the game. And I get so much of this. And it's really frustrating because I get that everyone wants to make their money. Everybody's trying to get out quick. Everybody wants to get rich and walk away. But we're harming people, right? We're putting businesses at risk. We're putting expats at risk, right? We're putting local, everyone's going to lose. There's a couple people who are saying these things or trying to gringo price people. Maybe they get lucky. And yeah, it's the fool who spends the money and doesn't do the research. That's truly at fault. I get it. But at the end of the day, right, the locals end up with rising prices, not based on the market going up, but based on this scam being run or being based on misinformation. And they can't afford their houses. They have to move somewhere. They get harmed, right? They can't stay in their communities. That's a bad, unhealthy gentrification that they're trying to do, right? And because you're not raising the prices of their stuff. You're only raising the prices of the gringo stuff, the expats selling to expats, which people don't realize. That's where the really dangerous stuff happens. And you're making this toxic expat environment, right, where all these people are just out running scams everywhere. Everyone's out trying to spread the same misinformation, thinking that they all benefit from it, and quite a few do. And it's just not good. It harms the expats. And if you're an expat coming down and you're like, you know what, I want to buy a business, I want to invest, having a bunch of misinformation, a bunch of people saying, look, all these places were wildly successful. They closed because they made so much money they decided to retire. They did not make so much money. They went out of business, right? They didn't make it. They tried. Maybe they made some money, but they didn't make enough to justify their time. And in some cases, they actually lost money, right? All these places that are out of business, that is not some artifact of success. Right, these houses that can't sell, that's not an indicator of success. All that renting while trying to sell, that doesn't mean that they're wildly rich and making double money. No, that is they're trying to hedge as best they can because they can't sell. Be honest with ourselves, but be aware that especially the expats are going to have a really high tendency. We talk about this a lot. And there's this big trend to just try to take advantage of the expats or trying to sell the incoming expats, you guys, right? Oh, there's a business to sell you, a house to sell you. And very often, something that people don't realize is that here, nearly everyone is part of the commission pipeline. If you're talking to someone and they've got a place for you to check out, there's a really high chance that someone is going to pay a commission. And I'm offered commissions all the time. I don't take any. But I'm offered them all the time on everywhere, right, to go show houses, and I'm happy to show houses, but I don't take a commission. I also don't tell you inflated prices, and I don't try to confirm inflated prices. So everyone pays a price. Everybody who's trying to make a quick buck, having me show houses, yeah, I'm willing to do it for free. I'm happy to just put houses on the show, right? So I'm a free advertiser for a lot of people. But I'm also a very dangerous one because I'm not going to pretend that the house is a different thing. I'm not going to undercut people and be like, look, the house is really 40. But I'm going to be like, they're asking 80. I can't verify if that's a good number. They are asking 80. Use common sense and do all your normal due diligence, right? But here's the house, check it out, and then compare against other houses if you want that we've shown and see if it looks like what an $80,000 house looks like. And you'll probably be like, I bet that's a $40,000 house, and you're probably right, right? But that kind of stuff, everybody's getting a commission. Everyone's got friends who are like, they'll tell them, look, I'll give you 10%, just keep the price of the house up. Sell it to anybody. As long as you get above this, I'll give you this much, right? It's everywhere. It's huge commission structure. Here in the United States, you never get that. Partially because the houses are worth so much and because they'll sell anyway. Here, it's so hard to sell a house and nearly impossible to sell a business that almost everyone is going to run out and be like, hey, I will give you X amount if you just manage to get someone to buy this place. And so you get everybody jumping on, trying to keep the prices up, trying to keep the interest up, trying to convince people that the market is good and it's competitive and that if you wait, you're not going to be able to get these places, even though had you had the same conversation 5 years ago, nothing would have changed. Same house, same still on the market, same asking price, and they still don't have their paperwork together or any way to sell it to you. We're not even sure that the owners are involved or that the people who actually own the house know that someone's trying to sell it. Real problems that come up. So you need to do your due diligence. You need to be aware. Be really, really acutely aware. Everybody knows that they need to be your friend. And everybody knows that they need to convince you that that everything is better, whether it's the general market is better than it really is, that the growth is happening in a way that affects you that it really doesn't, or that individual properties are somehow doing really well, even though logically the fact that they're for sale, that they've been for sale for a long time, that everyone seems to know they're for sale, yet they're claiming they just went on the market, like all these things don't add up. If it seems fishy, it's fishy. Just common sense, due diligence, negotiate harder. Don't jump into things until you've been here for a while. Come here for a while. One of the right reasons that I drive the locals crazy, the local expats who are trying to portray things as much healthier than they are, is because I've been here for a long time. I can you can't bluff me. Oh, that place is newly on the market. No, it's not. They tried to sell it to me. Everyone tries to sell to me. I'm one of the few active buyers over the last few years. Everything that's for sale, someone has approached me about. Sometimes many times. And sometimes I've helped people try to sell them. I know what they go through. I know what offers are being turned down. I know what offers people fail to get, right? In a lot of cases. So trying to tell me that places I've been sold, have been sold to me are not really on the market or are wildly successful and they're making all kinds of money. Oh no, they would never want to sell. No, trust me, they talk to me about it, right? All the time. So I drive people crazy because I've been here and you can't bluff me because I know. Now, sometimes I get things wrong. It's totally true, right? Nobody has all the information. One of the reasons that it drives me crazy is there's a lot of background information in all kinds of things that I can't give, right? Oh, I know this business is failing and trying to sell, but we're not going to, we're not going to tell you exactly who made an offer or who didn't, right? Often that's privileged information, but we know the market's not doing well. And people who are not investing are not part of that conversation. People who are not dealing with, water supply issues or power supply issues or road issues or whatever, or not actively investing in a community, have a lot less insight into a bunch of things. So there's a lot of things that people miss, and possibly quite honestly, right? But there's a lot of information that I have from having been here for a long time and having some insider information on a lot of things because I'm a part of a lot of community stuff and I'm a part of a lot of business stuff and I'm just actively involved. Often there's information that I have, for example, that a particular house or business has been for sale for many years. People will say, that's not for sale. There's no for sale signs. Well, that's not how it works here, right? They've been taking an effort to find people they think are reasonable buyers and trying to convince them to buy that. That's what being on the market is here, right? It doesn't mean that you're listed in the MLS. We don't have that. It's that you're not listed with Duns and Bradstreet. We don't have that, right? It is people talking to each other with the owner involved saying, I would like to get money for this business. Would you like to buy it, right? Let's work something out. That is what being on the market is here. And basically everything's on the market. There's a few things that aren't, but basically everything's on the market and has been. And people, not just they're willing to sell, that's really broad, but want to sell. And if you hint that you might be willing to buy something, they will definitely come out of the woodwork and have a conversation with you. Thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Scott Alan Miller. And as always, we have a GoFundMe for my producer, Marcela, who has stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. Check in the show notes for the GoFundMe information, which has everything about her current status. We hope to have her update in a few weeks. We don't know when the MRI will be, but about 3 weeks, I think, at this point. And if you want to send in a video question, some of you have recently. Thank you so much. I love those. Everything you need to know is in the show notes. Scroll down. We have some social media stuff we've been pushing recently during the live streams. Check out NikaLoro.com. Check out NikaGram.com. They're fun ways to engage with the community. Get in there, post pictures, have conversations, get in the WhatsApp Expats group, all that kind of stuff. Everything's in the show notes. Of course, go down into the comments of YouTube and say hello. If you're seeing me on TikTok or on Rumble, go check YouTube. That's where the main community is. That's a better place to watch, but we do try to get things into other places so that people see us. And follow along on other places, get involved, and I will see all of you tomorrow.